So guys, the F-14D Super Tomcat just got passed to the devs. Yeah, that's crazy, right? What is it? Should it come? And just because it was passed to the devs, is it going to be added? Well, today we're gonna try to answer all these questions. So, every month, guys, we have suggestions that were made in the forum that get passed to the devs for their considerations for additions to the game. Many times, vehicles that were in these lists got added eventually, and sometimes they are just there but don't get added. So although it is something that makes it more probable for us to see it in the game, the vehicles that are in these lists sometimes don't come, so it isn't a confirmation. With that in mind, the Super Tomcat was added to the November list. But what is it? Well, the Super Tomcat is the last modification of the F-14, the iconic American naval jet from the Cold War. The idea here was to modernize the older F-14s, bringing them to a more on-par situation in terms of certain systems to something like an F-15, for example, that were in service at the time. Pretty much fixing the main problems that he had in the late 80s, like for example, IFF problems with the radar, high maintenance of certain systems and things, the radar just becoming obsolete, basically, and many other problems. All of them basically fixed on the F-14D, commonly known as the Super Tomcat, a very fitting name, of course, right? Around 55 of them were built, from new ones and retrofitted ones from A's and B's, which is pretty interesting to think about. The main differences here are from the older models, of course, are for in-game purposes, a new APG-71 radar to substitute the aging AUG-9, right? Which brought technology from the APG-70 from the F-15E over to the F-14 with a capacity of 230 miles of range, which is insane. Although the radar technically could do even more, but it was limited due to the size of the antenna on the aircraft's nose, right? Which is crazy to even think about. Of course, with that radar, it is faster, more modern, and way better in its ECCM capabilities in real life. Overall, a much more modern radar, one of the best at the time MSA radars, mechanically scanned array radars, right? It has also a dual chin pod with a modern, at the time, IRST and the TCS as well, commonly known from earlier F-14s too. A modernized cockpit with modern HUDs, a modern HUD, right, and modern MFDs. The engines were the same as the B model, so the F-110, General Electric, F-400, right? So a familiar engine for American mains, way better than the older TF-30s, even in real life, way better. Of course, the weapons got modernized too, being able to carry the AIM-9M and even the AIM-7P with data link and inertial navigation, and of course the AIM-54C. And it was also even tested with some software upgrades, the AIM-120. Remember, these radars and FCSs at the time, right, were programmable. So with not a lot of effort, and if the hardware allowed it to, in this case it did, it was somewhat easy to implement new weapons. So although the AIM-120 never saw service with the F-14, Gaijin could think about adding it with it to have a Super Tomcat with every sense of the word super, and to have a more difference capacity on combat between the F-14B and D model. For air-to-ground, it was somewhat familiar, somewhat similar to the B that we have in the game, with the lantern pod, J-dams, and paveways. But of course, in real life, had many other upgrades, like digital internals and avionics, together with ECM and other features that in the game wouldn't be, something that you would notice. So, at the end of the day, guys, should he actually come? Yes, for sure. Please, Gaijin. Hopefully, as a Tech 3 vehicle. Indeed, yes, it is a low number of F-14s that got produced. But, still, it is the pinnacle and the last variant of the iconic F-14. Maybe as an event vehicle, but personally, I would love it to see in the game as a Tech 3 vehicle. It would just make it more viable for everybody to get. Of course, with the events that we are having right now, each month having one, they can have just one event, and it wouldn't be too hard for everybody to get. But I don't like the idea that it's kinda hard to get the vehicle, and after the event ends, it kind of it becomes, blocked by a paywall on the market. So I don't love that. So I would prefer to be on the tech tree. But I would understand if they add it as an event vehicle, right? Is it going to be added? We don't know. My personal opinion is that yes, eventually we will see it. But it might take a little bit of time. The most important thing is that just because it was added to the past to the developers list, doesn't mean that it will come, and it doesn't mean that if it comes, it will come soon. But at least now the devs, or we know that the devs know that the community wants it, right? So at the conclusion of the video, we need to say the only thing to discuss here is how should it be added. We have two options. One of them would be as a 13.0 vehicle with AIM-9Ms, AIM-7Ps, and the AIM-54C. And all the upgrades that we talked about, of course. But to be, honest, it wouldn't be too far from the B if that is the case. But it would be the realistic way, since that would be the main loadout that it would be available in service. But honestly, I would really love to see it in 13.3 or even higher, but probably 13.3 would be fine, with AIM-120s, being able to fully utilize the capabilities of the APG-71 with the amazing AIM-120. It lacks some features like the HMS, but even with that, the AIM-120 would be so cool to see it, since although we didn't see it in proper service, this is a game. And it would be what stands out to grind it, right? Since most other mods would be down to the radar, so it means that in the game, it would be maybe too similar to the B, even in the same BR as the B. And it wouldn't make a lot of sense because the B doesn't have even the AIM-9Ms that I think it should have, right? So the AIM-120 would make it unique. Unique in the sense of actually living up to the name of Super Tomcat. It would be the Super Tomcat, or the Tomcat that everybody would want to have, because it would bring every single upgrade, every single weapon, everything that the US had to throw at the Soviets at the time, because it was developed during Soviet times, right? In a Tomcat, a dying in-service aircraft. They were trying to make it live a little bit more, right? So that's why it's so good to have something like the AIM-120, to really live up to the name Super Tomcat. So what do you think, guys? Would you love to see the two Super Tomcat? I mean, I already know that you would, but anyway, let me know in the comments. Leave a like, be a Patreon, be a member if you want to help the channel a little bit more, and of course, join the Discord down in the description. I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, and bye.